His hypocrisy on this is terrible. What's even worse is the hypocrisy of the anti-war left, which has disappeared. Although the mainstream media ignores my battle to get my name off the banned list in Britain, I do have some supporters who do speak out regularly. One of them is Professor Ellis Washington. Joins us now to talk about a second part to the article that he wrote, Savage, Silence of the Lambs, which can be found on michaelsavage.com and WorldNet Daily. Professor Washington, welcome back to the Savage Nation. Please give us some background on this second part of the article. What was your thought process?
Well, Michael, as I said earlier, I always want to keep up with what's going on with you, with your blacklisting in Britain, and we all in the Savage Nation are waiting with bated breath to the day that your name is finally vindicated and you're removed from that list. In the meantime, I want to do all I can as a journalist, as a commentator for WorldNet Daily, to trumpet your cause as new information comes out. And so with this latest information that's been going on with your lawyers in Britain and in America getting discovery and key documents that reach all the way to the highest levels of Prime Minister Gordon Brown's administration in England, I wanted to just update the Savage Nation audience and those out there with some of the latest information.
You made reference to an article by Robert Conquest entitled Inside Stalin's Darkroom, which shows the power of these groups.
Indeed, Michael. King Solomon, the great king and prophet of the Old Testament, once said, I believe it was in the book of Ecclesiastes, that there's nothing new under the sun. So when I saw these terrible Stalinist tactics, these terrible enemies lists and blacklisting tactics launched without provocation against you, Mr. Savage, I was very ticked off and angry, as you were, sir. And so I wanted to try to draw some of those analogies in history, Michael. And so I came across an interesting article by a Hoover Institution fellow, a gentleman named Robert Conquest. And I even posted some pictures that he wrote in this article called Inside Stalin's Dark. And any of the Savage Nation audience can go to this article and you'll see the original picture that shows Stalin along with Molotov and his defense commissar, Borishelov. And there's also a picture of the chief of his secret police, a gentleman named Nikolai Yezhkov. And the picture on the left shows Yezhkov right next to Stalin, and they're walking along the Volga River. And then the next picture, he's gone. And you're like, well, this is obviously the same picture. What happened to Stalin's chief of police? Well, as we all know from history, Stalin was, among other things, he was megalomaniac, and he was very paranoid about people trying to do him in and things like that. And so this Yezhkov guy got on Stalin's bad side, obviously, and in 1939, Stalin had him disappeared. Now, this goes beyond just removing him from pictures. It goes to something even more deeper, more sinister, Michael, into removing the name of this man from all recorded history. And I was like, this is amazing. This is exactly what they're trying to do with you, Michael. They're trying to make you disappear, just like Stalin and his goons in Russia did back, 70, 80 years ago.
If the mainstream media had its way, I'm sure they'd make me disappear from the airwaves just as quickly as they could. But unbelievably, one of the more liberal magazines, The New Yorker, did what I think is an outstanding article on myself and the situation I find myself in. What did you think of that article?
It's so ironic that of all the media entities in America, of which there are numerous, and there are numerous conservative entities, the Weekly Standard and the New Republic come to mind. None of these conservative stalwart institutions have come to your aid. You had to get front page, first-rate article done by The New Yorker, which is a stalwart liberal media entity. And I want to give particular kudos to the young man that wrote the article for The New Yorker, Khalifa Sane, I believe is his name. He did an outstanding job. He was fair. He was balanced. He was not unduly fawning. He asked probing questions. And one of the things I particularly liked about Mr. Sane's review of you, Michael, in the New Yorker, was he kind of delved into the psychological aspect of what makes Michael Savage, the man, tick. What motivates Michael Savage as an American citizen, as an American patriot, as a conservative intellectual.
Winston Churchill endured much of the same thing in his effort to save Western civilization from the Nazis when he was banned by the BBC for over 6 years. Glenn Owen wrote an article about this. What are your thoughts?
I wanted to, in addition to Khalifa's excellent article on you in the New Yorker, I wanted to bring the Savage Nation audience and those that are interested in the blacklisting that's being done against you by Britain, I wanted to bring their attention to Glenn Owen's excellent article that was published in the Daily Mail. Like you said, it was a few weeks after Khalifa's article. And several things that Mr. Owen said in his article were very chilling. One of them was he was talking about some of the emails that came out of the Gordon Brown administration. One particularly said, it was on November 27th, and it said, with Weiner, in parentheses, Savage, I can understand that disclosure of the decision will help provide balanced types of exclusion cases. And another email that was marked restricted, it said, quote, we will want to ensure that the names of disclosed reflect the broad range of cases and are not all Islamic extremists. And another one from the Home Office said that they wanted to include Weiner in their quarterly stats, and also as part of the Foreign Secretary and the Prime Minister are firmly behind naming such people. So we can see, Michael, that this blacklisting and this Alfred Dreyfus-like slandering and libeling of your name went to the highest levels of the Gordon Brown administration. It's unconscionable, Michael.
In conclusion, where do you think this is going to go and what will be the outcome?
Well, Michael, while I'm sorry that this happened to you, if this had happened to just a regular Joe Blow like myself or just an average American who didn't have the resources that you have to hire lawyers in America, in Great Britain, you have a top-flight legal staff working around the clock to vindicate your name, this would have just been forgotten. It never would have been brought to the attention of the British and the American public. But thank God, Michael, and I know it's been a terrible burden against you and your family, but thank God that you are willing to fight against this, that you just didn't lie down and roll over. And in my heart, my sincere belief, Michael, is that one day your name will be vindicated. The British government, whether they want to or not, will have to acknowledge the terrible injustice and the tragedy that's been brought against your name. And they're going to have to give you a formal apology. And also, I think, as further discovery is being brought to bear, that you'll be able to see unmistakably that there's a connection between the British government and the Obama administration. We're already starting to see evidences of that, but I think as time goes on, Michael, you're going to see that there's key people in the Obama administration that was directly in collusion with the British administration, and that you're going to see that they were in collusion against you. And all that's going to come to light, Michael, very soon.
Professor Washington, thank you again for another great piece and for being on The Savage Nation.
Once again, Michael, I want to thank you and the Savage Nation for bringing me onto this wonderful show. You are in the vanguard, Michael. You're on the front lines in the battle for freedom of speech and freedom of expression for all Americans and for all those in England. And one day, Michael, I believe that your name is going to be vindicated, and I can't wait for that day to come. Thank you, Michael.
This is the Savage Nation. Be here or be nowhere.
Savage. Eloquent in their own way.
Armstrong and Getty. Weekday morning 6 to 10. Talk 910 KNEW.
Here's what's on michaelsavage.com. First of all, you're not going to believe this, but San Francisco wants to shield illegal alien criminals from the feds. This jerk, a so-called supervisor, would pass a law which would make it more difficult for officials to hand over illegal youths suspected of crimes such as murder and drug dealing. I wonder which side he's on. Can you figure that one out, who put him in office? I think I can. Doesn't anybody in San Francisco represent the real people instead of the criminals and the leeches? Can you name one supervisor who does represent the people rather than the criminals and the leeches? I can't.